In this special video, we'll learn why living near your children in old age can affect your happiness and well-being more than you think, and how reassessing your situation can significantly improve your quality of life. You'll be surprised at the last discovery, but before we begin, I want you to listen carefully to this story, because the lesson in this video is instructive. Doña Rosa, a 70-year-old widow, after the death of her husband, made the decision to go to live with her daughter Lucia. The thought of being near her grandchildren and helping with chores filled her heart with joy and warmth. Who wouldn't want to be surrounded by loved ones in their old age? This prospect seemed to her like winning the lottery. Her days were filled with children's laughter, wonderful smells from the kitchen, and a comforting sense of her own usefulness. This is the real life, Rosa thought as she prepared breakfast for her grandchildren. Her daughter Lucia's home had become a paradise for her, where they gathered around the table every morning, enjoying French toast and telling fictional stories. During the day, Rosa enjoyed helping the little ones with their homework, reminiscing about her teaching days. When little Matteo asked her to help with lessons, her heart was filled with warmth and love. A recent Stanford University study found that sharing generations can increase happiness and purpose in grandparents, and Rosa experienced this firsthand. She looked more alive than ever, as if she had discovered the source of youth in the smiles of her grandchildren. But as is often the case with things that seem too good to be true, sometimes they turn out not to be quite what they seem. Soon the story takes an unexpected turn. One day, as Rosa was making dinner, she overhears Lucia talking on the phone. "Mom is a real blessing. I don't know what we would do without her." Rose felt a surge of pride, but also a slight prick of something elusive, perhaps anxiety. The philosopher Epicurus once said, "It's not that we don't have enough time, it's that we spend it on the wrong things." Rose began to realize that every minute of her day was taken up with worrying about others, and she didn't have enough time for herself. Her own time and moments of peace were slipping away like water through her fingers. Instead, Rosa's days became a monotonous stream of worries. Breakfast, help with homework, lunch, homework again, and dinner. One day, while making Mickey Mouse-shaped pancakes for her grandchildren, to be honest, she had never made anything like this before. Rosa realized that it had been a long time since she had enjoyed simple pleasures. She couldn't remember the last time she had read a good book or taken a carefree walk with friends. Psychologist Erik Erikson emphasized the importance of maintaining autonomy in old age, but Rosa felt her own autonomy fading. When the children were asleep, she went out on the porch, looked up at the starry sky, and quietly asked herself, "Is this really the life I want to enjoy for the rest of my life?" The question hung in the air like a balloon lost in the night sky. The American poet Robert Frost wrote of branching roads in the woods. In her quest to be the perfect grandmother, Rosa may have lost her own path, but now small changes began to occur in her daily routine. What started out as infrequent visits to her grandchildren suddenly became a full-time duty, and now she often found herself changing diapers and soothing babies. Her days, once filled with social activities and time to herself, were completely consumed by household duties. Rose began to realize the truth in the words of the Stoic Epictetus: "Time does not stop, and neither does life." Her duty to her family was obvious, but with it came an elusive sense of fatigue and loss of something important. This is where the concept of grandma slave syndrome, introduced by Dr. Antonio Herrera, comes in. No, it's not the name of a new series on Netflix, although it could very well be. The term describes the emotional and physical exhaustion of grandparents, forced to sacrifice their own interests to care for their grandchildren. Imagine being on an emotional roller coaster. On the one hand, you love your grandchildren madly and enjoy every moment with them. On the other hand, as you change another diaper, you feel your life slipping through your fingers. It's like trying to hug a cactus, beautiful but painful. This syndrome can have devastating effects on women's mental health. Lack of acceptance, physical exhaustion, and loss of personal freedom can lead to depression and anxiety. It's like you're running an endless marathon, but no one is waiting for you with a medal at the end. Doña Rosa began to experience these symptoms, feeling increasingly tired. She told herself that it was normal, that this is what happens to grandmothers. But is it really okay to sacrifice your own well-being for the well-being of others? Psychologist Carol Gilligan talks about the ethics of care, emphasizing that women in particular tend to put the needs of others before their own. Doña Rosa lived this theory in her own flesh, sacrificing her time, her energy and, without realizing it herself, her happiness. Over time, she found herself looking out the window more and more often, longing for her former independence, remembering the days when she could go out for coffee with friends, without asking permission or changing her schedule. No, those simple outings seemed like an unattainable luxury. It's ironic, don't you think? Doña Rosa had grown closer to her children, seeking company and intimacy, but now felt more lonely. As a writer once said, loneliness begins with family. Doña Rosa's story takes an unexpected turn. What began as a dream of family togetherness turns into a sense of silent oppression. Have you ever wondered how a decision made with love can lead us down the wrong path? One day, as Doña Rosa was preparing dinner, Lucia entered the kitchen, frowning. "Mom, how many times have I told you that children don't like onions? Why do you insist on putting it in everything?" The criticism came down on Doña Rosa like a bucket of cold water. This incident was not an isolated one. Little by little the suggestions began to turn into orders and the advice into rebukes. Doña Rosa felt her space shrink and her voice disappeared. Does this sound familiar to you? Perhaps you have experienced something similar or know someone who has. Lucy's words sounded harsh and barbed, as if to override all of Doña Rosa's efforts to make the best of it. For a moment she stood still, trying to comprehend. How was it possible that her concern had suddenly become a source of irritation? And in that moment she realized that her desire to help and be helpful was not always perceived as she would like it to be. Grandma slave syndrome has become a reality, not just a term. At its core is a complex dynamic. Grandparents take on enormous responsibility, not always realizing how much it affects their physical and emotional well-being. After all, the immediate needs of grandchildren and children often occupy all thoughts, leaving little room for their own desires and aspiration. It's like a roller coaster. On the one hand, Rosa was overwhelmed with love for her grandchildren, but on the other hand, she felt her personal dreams and goals were being overshadowed and sometimes erased. Psychologist Carol Gilligan notes that women tend to put the needs of others before their own, especially within the family. Doña Rosa epitomized this theory in her own life. After sacrificing time, energy, and her own freedom, she found that her happiness had become a bargaining chip. In moments of loneliness, she found herself thinking more and more about the times when she could go out for coffee with her friends without thinking about who would take care of the children. Those days seemed like a distant luxury. How ironic. She had once sought companionship and support when she decided to move in with her daughter, and now she felt increasingly lonely. After all, as someone wise had said, loneliness sometimes begins with family. Doña Rosa moved closer to her children, wanting love and closeness. But instead, she began to feel the quiet pain of loss. In seeking support from our loved ones, we can lose something as precious as our identity. Doña Rosa began to feel the weight of this reality. Her days, once full of projects and dreams, were now reduced to caring for her grandchildren and following instructions. Where was the woman who had planned to travel? It was as if she had disappeared beneath the daily responsibilities. A study conducted at the University of Michigan found that older adults who maintain their independence report higher levels of life satisfaction and lower rates of depression. In addition, these people have strong immune systems. Doña Rosa was silent for a while, pondering everything she had just heard. Finally, with a mixture of fear and emotion in her voice, she asked, "But Carmela, where do I start? I'm afraid of hurting my grandchildren. Before we continue with the story, if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate your bell to be notified of new videos. And if you enjoy this type of content as much as I do, write in the comments, I love these stories. Let's continue learning together. Carmela gently squeezed Doña Rosa's hand. Honey, true love doesn't involve possessiveness. Your children will love you even more when they see how happy you are. Start with small steps. Take that art class you've always dreamed of. Go for a walk by yourself in the morning. Take back your space at last. Slowly, with cold coffee in hand and a heart full of new hope, Doña Rosa faced a problem she hadn't even realized she had. She needed to rethink her situation and evaluate her independence. Carmela's unexpected visit brought not only cookies, but also the seed of a new life. Doña Rosa found herself at an emotional crossroads. And then she remembered the words of the philosopher Seneca. Life is long if you know how to use it. She wondered if she was really using her life or just existing. The next morning, while she was preparing breakfast for her grandchildren, Doña Rosa had an epiphany. She remembered her youth and how she had lived her life. Of her early fascination with painting, left behind years ago. When was the last time she had held a brush in her hands? She couldn't remember. That same day, she decided to take a small step towards her independence. It started with something simple, a lonely walk in the park. At first, Doña Rosa felt guilty for not helping out at home. But she soon found that this daily hour of solitude was like an oasis in the desert. During these walks, she began to reflect on her forgotten dreams and plan how to bring them back. The next step was more daring. She signed up for a painting workshop for seniors downtown. And my God, what if I can't draw? She thought. But as the famous artist Pablo Picasso said, inspiration exists, but you have to find yourself in the work. And indeed, Doña Rosa found her passion for art in the studio, making new friends between brush strokes and laughter. She realized she was living on autopilot, forgetting that life at any age is full of possibilities. A Harvard University study found that maintaining independence in old age not only improves mental health, but can increase life expectancy by up to 5 years. Doña Rosa was living proof of this. With every new action and every personal decision she made, she felt better. However, it wasn't always so rosy. There were days when guilt attacked her. Am I being selfish? She asked herself. It was then that she remembered her friend Carmela's advice. You can't serve an empty glass. Taking care of herself wasn't selfish, it was necessary in order to continue caring for others. When Doña Rosa began taking care of herself, her energy increased, her chronic pain decreased, and even her memory improved. Drive. Oliver Sacks, a renowned neurologist and author, said that the brain is the most incredible organ. It adapts, transforms, and remakes itself with each new experience. Doña Rosa changed her brain and her life with each new adventure. However, significant changes also occurred in her relationship with her family. Paradoxically, by spending less time with them, the time they spent together became more valuable and meaningful. She was no longer a tired and complaining grandmother, but became an energetic woman with interesting stories to tell. Finally, Doña Rosa found the courage to have a crucial conversation with her daughter. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew it was necessary. As the poet Maya Angelou once said, there is no greater agony than to carry the untold. Doña Rosa had something to tell her daughter Lucia. My daughter, we need to talk, she said in a quiet voice. Lucia trembled with curiosity, having no idea what would happen next. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, Doña Rosa began. And I think it's time for me to move into my own place. The silence that ensued was deafening. Lucia blinked several times, as if trying to comprehend what she had just heard. Mom, why aren't you comfortable here? Did we do something wrong? There was a palpable concern with a tinge of guilt in her voice. Doña Rosa smiled softly. I need space, she said. Remembering the words of philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, who stated that man is doomed to be free and left to himself. Doña Rosa chose that freedom. Lucia's reaction was surprise, confusion, and then a mixture of sadness and understanding. But will mommy be able to handle it alone? What if you get sick? Lucia asked, her eyes full of worry. I don't say I'm going to disappear alone, replied Doña Rosa. I want to have my own space and enjoy this stage of my life. A University of Michigan study found that seniors who maintain their independence report higher levels of life satisfaction. But that doesn't mean her solution will be easy. Doña Rosa smiled. I love being with you, but I believe I'll be a better grandmother if I have time for myself. As the writer Inmo Lindbergh said, the most beautiful human joy is to be loved, but to be loved freely. Lucia was silent for a while, pondering her mother's words, and then nodded. You're right, mother. It's just that we will miss you very much. Doña Rosa hugged her daughter. I'll miss you too. But think of the delicious dishes I'll make when you come to visit. And no one will tell me you used too much salt. Both laughed, relieving the tension of the moment. Family psychologist Dora Maria Elena Rodriguez notes that difficult conversations like these are crucial to maintaining healthy relationships. Healthy communication between parents and children can strengthen family bonds, even if it involves significant changes, she asserts. During the conversation, Lucia began to see things from her mother's perspective. I think we all need our own space, she reflected. You've devoted so many years to taking care of us. Now I want to take care of myself, Doña Rosa remembered with a smile. Quoting the poet Rumi, yesterday I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I change. Lucia smiled with pride and nostalgia in her eyes. Well, Mom, I guess we'll have to help you find the perfect apartment with a kitchen big enough to house all your secret recipes. Doña Rosa added enthusiastically. And for my plants. Her face brightened. As psychologist Carl Jung once said, I am not what I was, but what I choose to be. Doña Rosa chose to be bold. Decorating her new home was unexpected therapy. Every item she placed reminded her of her favorite moments, and the bright turquoise color of the walls brought joy. If my Ramon could see me now, she laughed, remembering her late husband. Doña Rosa's true rebirth began when she dared to step out of her comfort zone and signed up for a master gardening class at Plans Nuevos. What a cliché, she thought. But it was there that she met Doña Consuelo with her caustic sense of humor, who soon became her partner in adventure. Together they discovered the concept of active aging. It wasn't just about being busy, but about living with purpose. As the World Health Organization notes, active aging allows people to maintain physical, social and mental well-being throughout their lives. Doña Rosa and Doña Consuelo decided to take a yoga class. The first session was a comically messy experience. I felt like a badly cooked pretzel, Doña Rosa joked. But they persevered and laughed like they hadn't laughed in years. One day, during coffee conversation, Doña Consuelo remarked, Rosa, you've given yourself away. We realized that we were no longer complaining about our illnesses. It was indeed true they were so absorbed in life that they forgot about aging. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said that life is like a play. It doesn't matter how long it lasted, what matters is how well it was acted. Doña Rosa was determined to make her second act the best. She dared to do more. She joined a book club and discovered a love of poetry. What's more, she even started writing her own poems. The wrinkles on paper are less noticeable than on my face, she joked, looking at her creations with a smile. But the most significant change came in her relationship with her own space. Visits from her children and grandchildren became more special. They ceased to be an obligation and became a shared pleasure. One Sunday, as her oldest granddaughter helped water the plants on the small balcony, Doña Rosa realized that something fundamental had changed. Not only had she regained her independence, but she had joyfully let the younger generation into her life. The paradox of love teaches us that sometimes distance is the secret ingredient to strengthening the most important bonds. When Doña Rosa decided to move into her own apartment, many thought it was a mistake, but she replied with a mischievous smile, "In solitude, I lead a more social life than many influential people." And she wasn't exaggerating. The physical distance between Doña Rosa and her family eventually became a rubber band. The strength of their union stretched a bit, but actually grew. The grandchildren's visits turned into welcome adventures. They were no longer monotonous evenings in front of the TV, but became real expeditions full of laughter and discovery. Each new moment together strengthened their bond and created memories they would hold in their hearts. Doña Rosa, having found her independence, was finally able to enjoy life to the fullest. One day the grandchildren came to their grandmother's house and found her in the middle of a large canvas. "Look, she's like Picasso," exclaimed little Matteo. Doña Rosa, even with mascara on her eyebrows, replied, "Picasso is too small for me. I'm big." That day, with strokes and laughter, they created a family masterpiece that now hangs proudly in the living room. Visits improved, and phone calls that used to be routine and short turned into long conversations. This is exactly what was happening in Doña Rosa's family. Her autonomy was having a dominant effect on all her loved ones. Her daughter Lucia confessed that the sight of her independent and happy mother inspired her to realize her dreams. Freedom is contagious. A University of Michigan study found that seniors who maintain their independence report higher levels of life satisfaction and improved family relationships. Doña Rosa was living proof of this study, her experience defying stereotypes about aging. During one of her tea parties with friends, Doña Rosa remarked that love means being together. But now she realized that love gives space for each person to be who they are. She made new friends and reconnected with old interests. Love is not only about physical time together, but also the quality of that time. As the writer Virginia Woolf said, "We just need to step aside to make room to thrive." Dear viewers, I invite you to ask yourself this question: are you living your life or the life others expect of you? Remember, it is never too late to start over. If you want to take a trip on your motorcycle, do it. Don't forget, life is too short to live in fear. Get out of your comfort zone and do something that scares you once in a while. This is how we grow and learn. As a great poet would say, anything you can do or dream of doing, start. Share this video with loved ones so they can realize this wisdom today. Click on this video to continue to feed your mind with wisdom. Hugs tight, and I'll see you next time.